real quick, I just want to say, if you haven't already, go ahead and download the Stardust app, right? And once you do that, you can go ahead and make like a 30-second or below reaction video or review on a movie or show that you just watched. And when you do that, make sure to tag me, Gattor, right? And you can possibly be in a future movie or show review. Thank you. Even though I'm like super duper dumb, stupid, ridiculous tired, I still gotta come through. You know, I know you hear the sound effect. No, it's not a sound effect, but I know you hear it. You know it's coming. Right? You know I got mine. Right? It's right here. It's right here. Hopefully you got yours. But yeah, I just want to let y'all know that I am like stupid tired. So during this reaction, if I don't react a certain way, or if I miss something, you know it's because I'm like dumb tired right now. Like the second I put my head on my pillow, I'm out like a baby. But hey, without further ado, let's get it.
Hey friends, I shall be gone this week in Puerto Rico, assisting with ongoing hurricane recovery.
Right.
Mr. Davis, Mr. Extremes, and Dr. Creepin have graciously provided their voices in my stead. I shall return to my normal narration schedule Monday, March 12th. But until then, please show some love and support to my talented guests. Thank you, friends, and I'll see you again soon.
I met Stacy, my wife, when I was in the 6th grade. We started officially dating in the 8th grade, and we dated all through high school. Then, just after graduation, she broke my heart.
Damn.
She wanted to go to college to find herself. I knew what that...
She probably went to college to go find some dick. I'm sorry. Let's keep it real. You know, I'm sorry. That was... y'all know I'm a very blunt person. I'm sorry. I've heard a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things. And to go find herself, come on. I'm sorry.
And I was taken completely by surprise. But she made it clear there was nothing I could do or say to change her mind. And believe me, I tried. More than I'd like to admit. So, just like that, it was over. I went to college close to our hometown, and she went to a college that was across the country in California. Selfishly, I told her we couldn't be friends when we broke up, as I knew that, well, that would help me to move on faster. Remaining friends would have kept the sense of hope alive, stringing me along. Over the next 2 years, I didn't hear from her at all. At one point, I did hear that her mother had passed away. Her father passed when she was young, but I never really found a good way to reach out. I went about my life, coasting through college, with a couple of short-term relationships here and there, but nothing serious. I just assumed she did the same. Then, one night, I went to a local bar with a few of my friends.
Right.
And there she was. I was too embarrassed to admit it, but I didn't actually recognize her at first. It had only been 2 years, but her hair was now short. I already had a few drinks in me at that point. It was only after she made her way across the bar to hug me that I fully comprehended who she was. My friends and I would always joke that this bar was like a high school reunion every time we went there. Well, it was the only decent bar in the area, so, well, everyone went there. And this time was no exception. It struck me as odd that she was back in town mid-semester, as this seemed like a strange time to fly across the country to visit home. But we got to talking.
Keep your mother guard up. Just saying. Damn. Just saying. Keep your guard up. Or, if you don't have your guard up, make sure you got your Adidas. Or both. You know? Just saying.
After a few drinks, I thought nothing of it. We really hit it off that night.
Oh, yeah?
It was like she'd never been gone. The feeling I had when I was with her. I joked about how she left me behind when she went off to college, hoping to ease any concern about whether I was upset. But she completely brushed it off. A little later, I brought up a story about a time when we were both in the 9th grade, and my mother dropped us off at a movie theater for a date. I could see the confusion on her face. She quickly explained that she'd been in an accident in her first year of college, and that she'd lost bits and pieces of her memory. The way she described it was that she basically couldn't remember some of the specific memories from her childhood.
Oh.
But she could remember faces and who people were. It sounded terrible, and I didn't want to prod too much, so I dropped it. After that night, we hung out again soon after, and then again. We picked up right where we had left off in high school. A few weeks passed, and she eventually told me she wasn't going back to school in California. She wanted to stay here, which was great. Things progressed, and we eventually got married after I graduated.
Oh my God.
Things were so great. Years rolled by. We had 2 kids. She was a stay-at-home mom, and she was so good with the kids.
What the hell? Even though I'm tired, it's like, I don't know, like, even though I'm like mad tired, it's something up about this whole story. Like, the girl is throwing me way off. I don't know. I don't know what it is. Something about her is throwing me off. And it could be the fact that I'm like really tired, that I'm not really comprehending. Did I say that right? A lot. Like if I was like wide awake, I probably would have gotten it by now. But it's something about this story and her that it's not sitting right. It's not sitting right here. Like, you know, it's something ain't right here. It's right here. Something ain't right. Like, and if something usually ain't right in my gut, either I have to poop or it's something about to happen. 2 things. Oh, I'm about to, yeah.
There were some ups and downs over the years, but things were generally pretty good.
Why?
And then I got an invitation to our 10-year high school reunion about a month ago. I thought about not going, but after some convincing from my friends at work, I decided to go. Stacy had also planned to come, but we ended up getting into a ridiculous argument tonight beforehand, so she stayed behind. I don't quite know how to explain what happened tonight at the reunion. I'm still processing it. It seemed like it was going to be pretty tame tonight. There were only about 40 of us that went. But then, somebody tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, and I immediately felt what I can only describe as dread in the pit of my stomach. I couldn't quite comprehend what I was seeing. She looked so familiar. I knew exactly who she was, but my mind was having a hard time processing it. It was Stacy.
What?
The Stacy I dated in high school. The Stacy that dumped me after we graduated.
The hell is going on?
She'd looked well, exactly as I'd expect, just grown up. But she didn't look like my Stacy. This wasn't the Stacy I married. This wasn't the Stacy that was back at home.
The hell?
Oh my God, Steve. I can't believe it's been 10 years.
This reminds me of that movie that's on Netflix. I don't know if it's still on there, but I think it's called Whatever Happened to Monday or something like that. It was like all identical, but it kind of sounds like that. But see, I knew something was up.
Who are you? Tell me about your life. You just kind of fell off the map. What happened? I'm great. I'm married now with 2 kids. How about yourself? I'm doing well. I fell in love with California during school and decided it was there I was meant to live.
Oh.
This is actually the first time I've been back since my mum passed 9 years ago. There really hasn't been any reason for me to come back since, well, until now. I ended the conversation there and immediately left. I'm now sitting outside my home in my car. The lights are off. I don't know who it is that I married.
Oh,
who I had kids with.
What the?
But it is not Stacy. Because that was definitely Stacy at the reunion. What's happening? I'm trying to piece this all together, but it's just too much. I don't think I can go in there.
Don't. Oh, how you gonna leave it like? How you gonna leave me with a cliffhanger? He going there or not? I would have never.
This is a true story of one of the most terrifying nights I've ever experienced in my life.
Right.
Now, to preface this story, I'll give you a little background information on me, of what I was like when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was in middle school and wasn't very happy with my life. I was constantly teased about being overweight and was even bullied to the point of physical assault by others. Trying to tell adults only resulted in worse things happening to me. I was a preteen who wanted to die and hated myself more than anything else in the world. I was isolated emotionally and had no one to talk to. My parents aren't the kind of people or forgiving. They've always made it clear that they have no remorse or worry for what ultimately happens to me. So, like anyone that feels alone, I was constantly, well, seeing things. Oh yes, I could see strange things all around me. Things others didn't consider odd or, well, couldn't even see.
Oh.
On the night in question that I'm about to talk about, well, it was a Friday night. I only remember because I was able to sleep in without any incident or anyone really bothering me. I lay in the room that I shared with my baby sister.
Yeah.
We're only 5 years apart in age, and despite that, I get along with her very well. Not so much with my other sisters. All of them were older than me. Now, as I lay in my twin-sized bed, I did my best to fall asleep. Though it escaped my grasp, and all I could do was simply lay there and wait until I finally tired enough to sleep. Apparently, it didn't take as long as I thought, but it didn't last. With an odd taste in the back of my mouth, I opened my eyes to see I was facing my sister's bed and the door to our room. It was wide open because our parents wouldn't allow us to close it, even though having it open always made it impossible for me to sleep, mainly because our bedroom was a corner turn from the hallway. Leaving a space like that made it impossible to see if someone was coming. At night, when the house was dark, I could see shadows forming and moving close to the edge. I was always scolded for telling my parents about them, and instead of easing any of my fears, they only made me feel like I was insane for even thinking that it was possible.
Is it possible to change parents? Can't you just... I mean, I think it is possible. You can like disown like yourself from like anything. I think really. I don't know, cause if I keep telling you that I'm seeing stuff, right? Like I'm seeing shadows and I'm seeing things move, and I'm not talking like it moves like a like an inch or so. I'm talking like it moves. It moves, right? If I'm telling you it's moving, right? And things are closing and opening, like wide closing. I mean wide opening and stuff like that. Like if I'm telling you this and this is happening on a consistent basis and you telling me that I must be insane or just go back to sleep or don't worry about it. Bitch. Two things. Either mom, you're in cahoots with all of this stuff that's going on, or I'm leaving. I'm leaving. I'm going to Felicia's house, and I'm gonna start a whole new life with her. And I mean, I'm 15, so I'm good. So you know, I can't. You think I'm insane, but I keep telling you this over and over again for like a couple of months, and you keep telling me to don't worry about it, go to sleep. It's nothing. I'm gonna have to hurry this up because I'm starting to hear stuff. So, yeah.
I could see one of the shadows, well, as if something were going to peek from around the corner at any moment, but, well, of course it never did.
It's peeking? Creep.
I tried to focus on something else and return my gaze to my sister's bed. Oddly enough, it was empty. I paused to listen and wondered if she was simply in the bathroom, but there was no sound, nor any light coming from the bathroom. If someone was in the bathroom, I could see the light from under the door, because it showed on the wall and could be seen from where I lay in my bed. Without any real reason, I sat up. Thinking back on it, I'm not sure I even did this of my own accord. I was afraid of the dark, and kind of still am, but apparently that didn't stop me that night. Without any caution or thought, I made my way to the hallway and found that the front door was wide open.
Now, see?
I then looked to the other end of the mobile home that I lived in with my parents. Their room was at the very end, and their door was also open. I walked past the front door to my parents' room and looked around to find that both of them were not in bed. I looked up to the bathroom, and it was empty too. Heading over to their walk-in closet, well, no one was in there either.
They in cahoots.
My brain was screaming for me to hide, to stop and just stay still. But I left my parents' room and went to tell my oldest sister. She had the room next to mine. Going into her room, I found it was empty as well.
You know what's crazy? He said his brain told him to like just stop, stay still. I know everybody's brain doesn't work the same. It's a different, like, different brains. You have, you think differently. Your brain tells you to do one thing. Some people, their brains may tell them to stop and freeze. Other people, like other brains may tell them to, like, go after whatever it is. Some brains may be like, protect. Some brains may be like, F that, save yourself. My brain is like, F that, save yourself, haul ass, all at once. My brain is on a whole different level. My brain is right here. Meanwhile, everybody else's brain is like right here. You right here. While I'm 6 miles out. You right here. While I'm 6 miles out. What? What? You right here. Because your brain tells you to freeze, stop, go hide somewhere. While my brain is like, run, haul it, you 6 miles out. You better get something to. You can't do nothing. You're clucked.
I closed the door to her room and headed over to the front door to see if someone was out there. I figured I would see them standing there, or maybe even just sitting. Nothing was out there. I was simply confused. Where had all my family gone? Why was I alone?
The
door wide open.
They all in cahoots?
Thank God my mind finally took over from my body. I ran to my room, intending to hide in there with the door shut and locked. At least, that was the plan. And as I ran to my room, well, I didn't make it.
Oh no.
I was reaching the end of the hall, getting ready to turn into my room, when it happened. I slammed into something. So solid, but nothing was there.
See.
I remember the horrible sensation of biting my tongue and feeling blood drip down my face, getting on the carpet, and that I was so scared.
You ran into Toby.
I was really, truly terrified. But I didn't have to deal with that much longer, because it all turned black on me. I woke up the next day in bed, feeling a horrible ache behind my eyes, and my nose still hurt. Sitting up slowly, I could hear the television on in the living room, and the sounds of food being cooked. I stumbled out of the bed and went to the hallway, looking around, and seeing my parents were sitting in the kitchen. I wanted to ask why they'd left, where they'd gone, and what happened. I did manage to say, "You all left me alone last night." I would tell you about the whole argument that followed, but I'll keep that short. I was told that I'd been dreaming, that I watched too many scary movies, and that I needed to stop making things up. I was treated like I usually was, with dismissal over anything I felt. I left them and headed back to my room, head staring down at my feet. Then, I saw something caked on the carpet. Something dried. I dropped down and started to pick at the stuff, and brought up dirty, brown, dried blood. I thought, this is enough. This would prove it. But instead, they all simply said, it's mud. Well, it was the dry season in the desert. They say I lied. And I made it up for attention. I need to stop watching horror movies. I remember that night, though, and I know and feel deep down inside me that someone is watching me. Not at all times, but every time I'm out, I can feel like someone is watching me just far enough that I can't see them. I've been told by only a few people that if I feel that way, it means someone is watching me.
Yeah.
But even though as we've evolved, humans still retain a few senses that can alert us. So, even if I thought I was alone at times, I knew someone was watching me, but wouldn't let me see them. This is real. I know it sounds so out there and far-fetched, but this happened to me. This horrible thing that I wish was a story that I could laugh off and say, "Ha, gotcha," is actually something that I had to suffer through. I'll never forget that night, no matter how hard I try. Because everyone left me alone at a time when I was so scared, and yeah, there are moments in your life that no matter what happens, you will never forget.
Yeah.
And, well, there are moments in your life that no matter what happens, you will never forget.
Ain't that the truth? Can you imagine just feeling somebody's watching every single day? Oh my God.
He opened his eyes and looked about the room. Light from the door, the only illumination. He let his eyes wander over the items in the room. Strange things that he did not know the use of. Above his head, he saw a screen with strange writing scrolling across it. He had no idea how long he had been there, nor did he know where he even was. All he knew was that he'd been taken there a long, long time before. That he was lying in a bed of sorts and that he was thirsty. So very thirsty. His mouth was dry and his tongue feeling sticky and swollen. His lips dry and in danger of cracking. Feeling a need to move, he felt resistance in his wrists. His arms were bound to the bed. His heart rate accelerating a bit as fear washed over him. He began struggling against the restraints. Sounds and movement in the doorway distracted him momentarily, his fear growing as the sounds came closer. Closing his eyes against the pain as a sudden bright light pierced his eyes. Opening them again, he recoiled in fear from the sight before him. Two creatures had come into the room and were approaching him. Even if forced, he could not begin to describe the horror that was these two creatures. They flanked him and looked down on him. One seemed to be the leader, as it was trying to communicate, some incomprehensible gibberish spewing from what could have been called a mouth only in the most generous sense of the word. The creatures then pulled the covers from him, leaving him only covered in a very thin cloth. He began struggling again, whimpering in fear. What were they going to do to him now? The creatures moved him around, turning him this way and that. They released the things holding his arms, tied down, and he began fighting against them. The lead creature was apparently upset and was chastising him, the voice sharp. He soon gave up trying to fight his captors, not because he feared angering them, but because of the fatigue that overcame him. He lay there, shocked and defeated, stunned at the weakness in his body. He was sure that he had once been a strong man. The creature stripped him and began rubbing a strange, wet substance over his body. Finally, they finished manipulating him, leaving him in a different position than before, again covered in the cloth and a fabric covering. One creature moved away and returned with a package. It spoke again to him, and then pushed something into his mouth.
Pause.
The texture, slightly rough, but moist.
Pause.
At first, relief washed over him, as his parched mouth was wet. But then a stinging sensation and a strange taste hit him.
The pause.
He turned his head away as he sunk even deeper into despair. He closed his eyes, trying to shut out the world that was now his hell, and heard the creatures leaving the room, chattering to each other. Outside the room. Thanks, Cam. Let me know when you need help with your baths, Jan said, looking at her friend and co-worker. Glancing back, looking sadly into the room they'd just left, Cam nodded and then stopped. What's wrong, Jan? Jan shook her head. I don't know. Did you see his eyes? The way he looked at us?
I ain't seen nothing.
She looks back at the patient. He looked terrified. Cam nods again, also looking into the room. Yeah, I thought so too. He has dementia, yeah? Yes, he does. I wonder. Jan pauses, thinking. I mean, I know they lose their memory and all, but I just wonder. What if they lose the ability to recognize human faces too? Cam looks at Jan, horrified. Oh my God. What if they do? Jen picks up the thought. What does he think we are? What does he think we're doing to him? Both nurses shudder at the thought, looking sadly at the patient.
Y'all tripping.
Jen wonders out loud. What are we doing to him? As many scary stories as I have written, I've never told any of the true ones that have helped to inspire the chills and the thrills I've written about here on this platform. To start off with, I've always known there was something just off in the cosmos the day I was born. I was literally born on Friday the 13th
God.
at 1:57 p.m.
Yo. My birthday. Thank God my birthday is not on a creepy day. My birthday is April 29th. April 29th is that's when my birthday is. Hashtag happy almost birthday. Alright, turn up. Hey. But can you imagine? Your birthday's on Friday the 13th. I'm not doing nothing. I'm staying in the house until the next day. I'm sorry, it's Friday the 13th. That's free game. Anything goes. Friday the 13th? Are you serious? Like, come on. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not taking that chance. Not on my birthday. I'm supposed to be turning up. Meanwhile, there's probably somebody turning up some gas or like some fire trying to get me. Like, nah, I don't need that. I'm just gonna stay in the house until the next day. I'll celebrate the next day. Saturday the 14th. How about that? We can do that. I'm not doing nothing Friday the 13th except staying in the house and having a very select few family members and friends. If that, I might just stay in the house by myself. Friday the 13th? Are you serious? You can't. I'm not doing a goddamn thing.
That's strange enough. But what I'm about to relate to you is just as strange.
Right.
They do say truth is stranger than fiction, and how right they are. I've always felt like I was cursed in some way because of this. Or maybe I was lucky. I have no idea.
No, he cursed.
I once went to a psychic who told me I was marked. Whatever the hell that means.
I don't know exactly what that means.
I come from a long line of interesting women on my mother's side of the family. There's a story about my great-grandmother, who was Cherokee Indian, and she had weird dreams and visions. My mother was divorced from her first husband, and my two older siblings had to go to Florida to see them by plane. It was the late 70s, and a few years before I was born. My great-grandmother, who was staying with my mum at the time, woke her at 4 in the morning to tell her not to let Robbie, my brother who was 4 at the time, get on the plane. She insisted he was going to get severely hurt in some way, and that she had dreamt it. My mum has always been a realist and didn't believe my grandmother, yet it unnerved her just the same. It was court-ordered that she put him on the plane, and so she did. A few hours later, she got a call from her ex-husband that my brother and sister had made it to Florida, but he wanted to let her know his father had died that morning, and he had the same name as my brother. My stories are just as strange, but 3 things stand out in my life, beginning when I was about 4 years old. My father used to belong to a bowling league in the early 80s, and when he had things to do, he would let me hang out with an older man that was basically like everyone's grandpa at the bowling alley.
You're not my grandpa.
His name was Ike, and he was the sweetest man on earth. He would let me eat free food, make me milkshakes, and let me play games without charging my dad for them.
His name Ike. His name Ike. So, where Mike at? You get it, or this Mike and Ike's out. Some people got that. Some people it just went right over their head. It's like a 50-50 on that. Mike, cause it's all right.
He was probably close to being 80 years old or so back then.
See?
One evening, my family was eating at the dinner table. My brother, sister, my mom, and my dad, just sitting in our breakfast nook area eating, when the telephone rang. I don't recall who was on the phone, but I was eating my food and my dad whispered to my mom.
Okay. First, I thought I saw something out of the corner of my eye. That would explain why I looked over here for like a couple seconds, and then I felt like something was on my hand, so that's why I freaked out, because I wasn't expecting that, and plus I'm listening to a horror story. Stories. Why can't I just watch horror videos without nothing happening? I don't need like this. I don't need this. Oh my God. If I freak out again, I'm calling it quits, and I'm just going to end the video. Like, I don't got time for this. Oh, okay.
Who is it? Tell him you'll call them back. We're eating dinner. My mum ignored him, and I looked down at my plate of food, and ever so matter-of-fact said, Ike died. My dad looked at me sternly and told me to be quiet and eat my dinner. When my mum got off the phone, she was very sad-looking and looked at my dad. You're never going to believe this, but Ike passed away this morning of a heart attack. My dad didn't even look at me, and I said, I told you that. I already knew. I rolled my eyes and went back to eating. My dad and mom exchanged looks, and my older sister just stared at me in complete disbelief. My brother shook his head at me and told me I was a little weirdo. Well, I guess I was a little weirdo. I can't explain it to this day. How I knew it just popped into my head, and I knew he had died. I was more excited about knowing something that all the adults didn't know, because I was the baby of the family, and no one really paid much attention to the stuff that I told them. Years later, my sister recalled it, and relayed to me how creeped out she'd been by it. I also recalled later that night, waking up as though something had purposely wakened me, and looking out my bedroom window. There was a silhouette of a man watching me from the shadows outside.
What the hell?
There were 3 duplexes just behind the house I grew up in, and an alley that led to a parking lot between each of them. I could see it very clearly from my second-story bedroom window. It was pitch black in my room, but I noticed a shadowy figure just standing there in the night, looking up at my window. I couldn't make out the face, but I knew it was a man. I have no idea if it was connected in any way to Ike's passing, but it scared me. I recall jumping back in my bed and trying to go back to sleep. There was something unnatural about it, and the fact he seemed to be looking at me creeped me out even more. Like, how did he see me? I knew he was watching me. It only happened that once, and I later forgot about it. Well, about 15 years later, a similar incident happened to me when I was 19 and in college. I'd been best friends with a boy named Brian when I was a kid, who lived down the street from me. His mom and my mom were good friends, and my mother would drive he, his younger brother, and myself to school every morning. We hung out a lot outside of school, and the 3 of us were inseparable. We were always on our bikes in the summer, or we went swimming in my backyard. I can't remember any part of my life from the age of 5 until I was about 10 that Brian wasn't around me. Then, one afternoon, my mum sat me down to tell me that Brian and his family were moving to Florida.
Damn.
I was obviously devastated at that fact, and it took a while for me to adjust to the fact I no longer had a best friend. Eventually, I moved on and made other close friends, but never as close as him. Around my senior year of high school, I was doing homework in my bedroom when my older sister, who was staying with my parents and I during her husband's deployment, came knocking on my bedroom door. I was annoyed, and then she said to me, "You're never gonna believe who's downstairs." I didn't know, I said, and then she told me Brian was on the front porch. It had been years since I'd seen or heard from him. When I found him, he was smoking a cigarette on our front porch and stood up, threw the cigarette in the front yard, and gave me the biggest hug of my life. We chatted for hours about he wished his family had never moved away. Things had changed for his family a lot after the move, and his parents soon split up. He told me how much he missed me, and how I was always his best friend. I recall thinking he was cute, but that he was a bad boy.
What? The hell?
He was driving this car that his uncle had given him with no driver's license. I was sad when he left, and he promised he would keep in touch. He did keep in touch, but his life was so far off track from mine. I knew he had anger issues and some drug problems. He called me one night to see if I would come hang out with him, but I'd already made plans with a friend of mine. When I asked if we could do it another time, he got mad and started going off on me over the phone about how all he wanted to do was just be my friend, and he knew I was just blowing him off. That was the last conversation I had with him over the phone. I tried to reach him after that, to try and talk to him and see how he was, but he didn't want to talk to me. Eventually, I moved past it. I graduated high school and went to a local liberal arts college about an hour from home. I'd been studying for my psych test that I needed to pass. I felt that going home for the weekend would give me the peace and quiet that I needed to brush up on my studies and do well enough on the test to get my grade up from the C that I had currently. My mom knocked on the door of my bedroom, and she had tears in her eyes. I looked at her as she held a newspaper in her hand. I sat up on my bed and looked at her. "What's wrong?" "You are never gonna guess who died." Again, something hit me, and I had no idea how I knew, but I knew. "Brian," I said to her. It had been almost 3 years since I'd seen him or given him any thought. Yet in that moment, I knew it was he who had passed away.
That sucks.
"How did you know?" she asked me. "I don't know, Mom. I just did." She looked at me, and I began to tear up. "How do you think he died? There must have been a car accident or something," she said. "He killed himself,"
What?
I told her, matter of fact. "How would you know that?" "I don't know. I just do."
Excuse me.
There was this foggy feeling I had, and I can't explain it. It just so happened my mom, who was in the habit of reading the obituaries, saw it, and it was the same day as the funeral. When we got to the funeral, his mum, obviously devastated, told my mum she'd found him hanging from a rafter in the basement of their house. It was 2 weeks before Christmas. The last thing I've experienced was when my dad became ill. When my father was 9 years old, he was hit by a car and his leg was severed from the shin down. Because of the quickness of the doctor and his age, they were able to save his leg, as it was still partially connected by about an inch of bone and skin. He remained in a full body cast for an entire year after. My father had a bit of a rough life, and around that time his own parents had begun to have issues. My grandfather left my grandmother and moved to Virginia. My dad, one of 6 brothers and sisters, became the primary breadwinner for his family when he was old enough to work. He worked hard, and he played hard. When he was 39 years old, he had a double hip replacement. The car accident he was in at 9 left one of his legs slightly longer than the other. It wasn't noticeable unless you stared at it. That hip replacement led to 3 more surgeries in the right hip, mainly due to a staph infection that kept coming back. He had a ton of close calls his entire life. My dad and I were always close. We were a lot alike, to be honest. We both require a lot of alone time to think and rest from the world. I think I get that from him as well, as my wicked sense of humor. He was a truck driver for nearly 30 years, and I was taught the importance of working hard, and it's one of the reasons that I've been with the same employer for nearly 20 years. My father had to have his 4th surgery in January of 2009. He never asked me to be there for any of his surgeries, and this time he asked me, and only me, to drive him to the hospital. It was something about how my mum drove him crazy, with her worrying over him. I was very freaked out, because the night before I'd dreamt he didn't make it through the surgery. In the dream I'd seen him walking in the cemetery, and I couldn't reach him to find out what happened. I woke with tears streaming down my face, and I was filled with this sense of dread. Not to mention, he'd insisted on me driving him to the hospital. I was very scared, and it wasn't like him. But he made it through the surgery just fine, and I felt a lot better. I chalked it up to my worrying and paranoia. He was sent to recover in a rehabilitation clinic, and one evening, about 4 weeks later, my boyfriend and I went with my mum to visit him. He was looking a little depressed, and insisted we come back the next day to visit again when he was feeling better. I hugged him goodbye, and that was the last I saw of him. Sometime that night, he suffered from a blood clot, and my dad, the stubborn man he was, died getting up from a chair on his own to move to his own bed. He fell on the ground and died. The strangest part of it all was when my mum called me. I was in the shower and missed the call, but she got a hold of my brother, who lives in Arizona. And when he called me, I knew. I didn't even know my mum had tried to call me. The fact that my brother never calls me because he prefers to text was a sign that something was wrong. But again, I had that weird, foggy feeling come over me. It's like the world stops, and you can see everything so clearly. I could smell my father everywhere that night too. It was as if he was hovering around me.
He probably...
Or maybe it was my mind playing tricks on my nose. It doesn't end there though. Later that same night, when I finally fell asleep, I had another dream. I saw my dad, and the only thing he said to me was, "I tried. I'm sorry. And I love you too much, baby girl." I think this was because my dad had tried for years to overcome all the physical pain and all the surgeries he'd went through. It wore on him physically and emotionally. Well, I don't expect anyone to believe me, but I'm sharing these stories anyway. I can't explain knowing about Ike, Brian, or the dreams about my dad's passing. Maybe it was instinct or something warning me to prepare me. Maybe it gives way to something like hope or understanding. Not everything that goes bump in the night is bad. And some of us, for whatever reason, have these preternatural experiences we can't explain. I for sure can't explain away any of this.
Hey friends, thanks for listening. If you got a story, be sure to submit them to my subreddit, r Let's Read Official, and give and receive feedback from the community. Be sure to check out my Choose Your Own Path horror game on the iOS and Android App Store, and grab early access to all future narrations for just $1 a month on Patreon. Links in the description. Thanks so much, friends, and I'll see you again soon.
I don't think I would want to have like visions like that, like I don't know what it's called, like premonitions or whatever, like you seeing, you like having visions and stuff like that. Like I don't know if I can have that, because that would freak me out every time I sense something and it's true. Or like, I don't think I could be able. Oh my god, I can't. I wouldn't be able to have. I wouldn't be able to handle that. I wouldn't, because that would scare me every single time, and especially like me, like if I was able to see like spirits and whatnot, like clear, as if like they're humans or whatever, I wouldn't be able to handle that. I'll be having a heart attack every time. every single time. Nah, you're gonna keep that for the people that's that have premonitions and stuff like that, and are able to see things that other people can't really see. I'm gonna go ahead and leave that to you. You can take all that, embrace it, however you want to take it. Just stay the hell away from me. I don't want none of that. Right? And as far as like you experience something, or like you like witnessing, yeah. As far as like you witnessing or experiencing paranormal stuff, and like your parents or your friends or some of your family members or whoever you tell about this stuff, like you told somebody a couple of times what you experienced, as far as like creepy paranormal stuff, if they don't believe you, like every time you tell them and they don't believe you, I think it's about time for you to, take it up in your own hands. And that can mean whatever you want it to mean. You could, run, or like, if your parents don't believe you, you could see if you can move in with your aunt or whatever, or brother, sister, cousin. If your friends don't believe you, cut all ties with them, because they're probably in cahoots with whatever you saying. I farted. I'm sorry. I don't know if you all heard that. It came out. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Much love. I love you guys. We're a family. Whatever I do on camera. Hey, sorry. Like, we family. We go through a lot. We go through thick and thin. You heard me burp. You heard me curse. You probably heard me fart a couple of times. You all experienced pretty much the same thing whatever I go through, you all go through. I think. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. All I know is that we're family, and whatever I do, you all gotta accept it, I guess, not really. Okay. We're family, and that's that. That's that. We keep it real. We keep it 100. That's what I meant to say. I am so tired. So a lot of the stuff that I'm saying, it may not make no sense, right? And after I make this video and I watch it like in the morning or something, I'm going to be like, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. Why would I say that? I just confused them. Yeah. Because half of the time when I'm like really tired, I don't really know what I be saying. Sometimes I just be talking just to talk, like I'm doing right now. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you. Stay happy, my family.